It's important to reflect on the impact my thinking has on her. Are there situations where I'm doing things to make myself feel useful, to make myself feel needed? G'day, I'm Debra Caldow. Welcome to the Red Giraffe Solutions Expanding Worlds podcast, where we aim to support you as you help your young person with additional needs plan for their future, a future where they're safe, secure, and live a rewarding and fulfilling life. From around the world, I share stories and I share solutions from people making this possible right now. I'm a parent of a young person with additional needs, so I understand the challenges. Many of the people I've interviewed on this podcast have already helped me design a better future for my daughter, and I hope that they might help you as well to imagine what's possible for your young person. Do we all really want the same thing? The reason I'm asking this question is because in last week's episode, at the very end, my guest Julie said something that got me thinking. I asked her a question about whether parents were nervous about letting their young people work in the esteemed cafe. And she said yes, sometimes they were. But what they always did was remind families that we all want the same thing. And I'm not sure why, but it got me wondering if that was really true. Often our children need extra support and professional involvement. So in many ways we have lots of voices giving input. And of course when there are lots of voices, there are lots of different opinions and different objectives. But whoever's involved in our children's lives, at the end of the day, it will inevitably come back to us. We're always their guardians, and I don't mean that in a legal sense. I mean that more in an action movie sense. We'll always be the last line of defence. Other people come and go in their lives, but we're there until we're no longer there. And that's a pretty emotive place to be in. I look at what I'm doing with my daughter, and I really want her to be independent. Because I know that when I'm no longer around, all the skills that she's learning now will stand her in good stead for a much better future. The more she can advocate for herself, the more she believes her voice matters, the better her life will be. But at the same time, saying all this, I know that despite my best efforts, I'm still guilty of really holding on way too tight and speaking for her when I need to stop talking. And yes, there's a fear element in there because I know what the world can be like, but I often forget to give her credit for the resilience that she's already shown. I truly believe our children have more resilience than most because they have to develop this skill to survive. The world can and often is unkind, but it's also supportive and caring. And too often I forget this and end up going down that rabbit hole of what ifs. So this fear for her often drives my actions. But I also think there's another factor which I feel is much harder to talk about, and that is the impact that codependency is having on my relationship with her. I'm at that period in my life where I'm lucky enough to have plenty of time to support my daughter when she needs it. And what that has meant is that particularly over the last couple of years, I've been able to focus on supporting her to develop her independence. But as she's become more independent, I found myself in this weird place, thinking, what do I do now? What is my purpose if my purpose is no longer supporting her? And of course, this podcast has served as part of that. I started the podcast because of her. And although I could say I keep it going because of her, if I'm completely honest, I keep it going because I enjoy talking to people and hearing some amazing and inspirational stories along the way. And although this question, what about me, sounds completely selfish, in reality I need to think about it because it's important to reflect on the impact my thinking has on her. Are there situations where I'm doing things to make myself feel useful, to make myself feel needed, to make myself feel better as a parent? Because having looked at what I do, I can see there is an issue around codependency, which could lead to learned helplessness. It's easy to become so tied up in our children's lives to that point where it ends up hindering, not helping them. And that's not to say it isn't natural, of course, because from the day that my daughter was born, I've been tied up in her life. And there's never really been a moment where I haven't been thinking about things around her life and planning for her future. And if your child has a sibling, then you'll know the stark differences between how your child and their sibling without additional needs go through their childhood and how their adulthood looks in terms of work, relationships, and even daily living skills. And it's hard not to forget the money issues as well. It's such a different experience bringing up a child with additional needs, alongside one who doesn't have any. And it has a massive effect on the family. Because ultimately, as a parent, you have to focus on one child more than you do another. It's not a choice, it's a necessity, because every element of their life needs input. Whereas maybe for their sibling, they might find relationships quite easy. Their school years are simpler, their world is wider, and the way they're treated by the world is very different. So you can end up almost in this symbiotic relationship. And as our children get older, when you know you've got to sit back and go, right, got to let them go, it's not as easy as it sounds. And of course, everyone has different challenges, but whatever challenges our children face, there's always going to be times when we can step back. It's up to us to make the choice to do that, no matter how hard it is in that moment. So this is why I understand this question of am I doing this for her or am I doing this for myself is such a critical thing to think about. Because only by being honest with myself will I learn to step back and respect her right to not just do things for herself, but to make mistakes and to learn from those mistakes. As one of my previous guests said to me, we need to think of our children as independent problem solvers. And that can never happen for my daughter if I need her to need me. I just want to say thank you for taking the time to listen, and I hope that the stories and solutions shared on here help you as you support your young person to create their future. If you know anyone who would find the ideas useful, please share the podcast with them. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn at Debra Caldow. I'd love to have a conversation with you on any of the topics we all care about. Bye for now.